This is Game Informer's Test Chamber, and I'm your host, Joe Juba. I shave my head, I wear glasses, I like to read strategy guides of games I haven't played. I'm joined by Andrew Reiner, the coolest guy I've ever met.
I have a goatee. I think I'm the best at everything.
I want to be him. I want him. Joe, we're playing Final Fantasy XIII Lightning Returns, and I have one question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Where the hell did she go?
Well, that's, the answer to that is longer and stupider than I really want to get into right now. But the short version is this game takes place 500 years after the end of Final Fantasy XIII-2.
She's immortal?
So, during...
You have to give us some context. It's the name of the game.
Okay, so during that time, come on, at the end of 13.2, Lightning basically put herself in this, Lightning basically put herself in a...
cocoon.
Like a crystal slumber. And so she's been asleep all of this time. However, at the end of that game, also there's this whole thing about like chaos leaking into the world, and it's basically just caused everyone to be frozen in time. So they're not immortal in the sense that like they can still die by, getting shot or stabbed or whatever.
So they've come back 500 years later and the world has changed. It's moved on. The people that weren't frozen?
Yep. So everyone who wasn't frozen, which is everyone except Lightning, is basically just been alive for 500 years, kind of frozen in time. And this chaos has slowly been eating away at the world. And so when the game begins, we are 13 days away from the actual end of the world, when supposedly God is going to wake up and, destroy the world and take everyone's souls and use it to build a new world.
People are supposed to change.
If you're sleeping for 500 years, do you think you just have one dream that lasts that long? Or do you think you have like multiples?
I didn't want to
Man.
his change.
I think it's just one dream. I think you live like a whole other lifetime in your sleep.
What if it was a nightmare? That'd be terrible.
That's true.
You'd wake up just really messed up.
So, what we are doing here, I don't know if you played the demo for Lightning Returns.
Absolutely not.
Well, for the people that did, the demo is actually how the game begins, which is Lightning sort of pursuing Snow. And that's another interesting thing. Like, basically all of the characters from Final Fantasy XIII through various sort of narrative ploys are still around and, alive and kicking in this world.
Well, here's a funny story.
Okay.
Joe Juba.
Yeah.
I played 13.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't play 13.2.
All right.
Because I didn't really like where 13 took me.
Okay.
And I wrote a blog about it, how I really want them to kind of get back on a different path. But one of the things I hated the most about 13 was a character named Hope.
Oh, well, you'll be happy to know that apart from Lightning, the most prominent returning character is Hope.
And here's the thing. On my phone still, whenever you call me, it brings up a picture of Hope. I said it way back when the game came out. I was like, the most annoying person in the game. I'm tying this image of Hope to Joe Juba.
Oh, thanks, Reiner.
So I always see him whenever you call me.
So, what we're going to do here is one of the big things. One of the big things about this game is instead of the paradigms from the previous games, what we've got are schema. And so you've probably seen videos or pictures of stuff of like Lightning in a bunch of different clothes and stuff. But
yeah, she could wear like Lara Croft's outfit and stuff like that.
Right. And I actually have, this is the pre-order downloadable outfit. This is Cloud from FF7.
So you cosplay.
Basically, yeah. So you have a lot of different options. And so what a schema is actually much more than just that picture.
What?
Or than just the clothes you're wearing. It's also, let's see if I can find, I actually have to do one for a quest here. This one. So we're going to make a new schema. So it's not only your clothes, but it's also
is that made of latex?
The stuff you have equipped. No, but it does look surprisingly shiny. Yeah. Okay. So she's wearing a latex dress. So we're going to do that. And
Nice flower on your wrist. You going to prom?
Yeah. Okay, so this is just, we're not really thinking this through here, but the schema is...
I have nothing to do with this. This is your mess.
So the schema is the combination of the clothes, the weapon, the shield, the accessories. You can wear a bunch. I mean, man, I have a bunch of stupid crap you can put on.
Well, outside of making your character look weird, what are you doing? What are all these pieces doing for you?
Well, the sword and shield have like attack and defensive properties, but the accessories, none of these do anything. All of these are just like stupid cosmetic things that you put on Lightning, and you do one at a time. So we're gonna
personalize it.
Yeah, so we'll put the mustache on her.
Okay, very nice.
But then the most significant stuff that you're doing is assigning abilities to her. So,
okay.
So we'll like put that on there.
And there's 4 different blizzards there. Do they, once you use them, they're gone?
No. So what you're able to do is fuse them together. So I haven't done this yet, or it's been a while since I've done it. But you can basically, if I want to improve this one blizzard, I can funnel these other 2 into it to sort of like raise its attack power. So that's
gotcha.
That's what you're doing with it. You always want a guard on all of your schema, basically, because that's the way that you defend when attacks are coming in. And I mean,
well, if you want to play that way.
Well, but the thing is, it's kind of weird to me. It seems weird that it's not automatically on there. That like that guard isn't just a normal button. It's actually a command that you have to set. The same with attack. Like you'll notice that none of these are just straight up swing your sword at something. So that means that when she's wearing this schema, she can't do that. So, and then another thing that you get to do is change colors on things.
This is fascinating.
Yeah, this is... So you can like change it all at once.
Can we go kill some stuff?
Yeah, hold on. I mean, this is a big part of the game. Hold on for a second.
Dude, this has been in like sports games for like the last like 30 years.
Yeah, well, it's a big thing that they're excited
that looks lovely.
For this. Okay, so now we're all dressed up. We are ready to keep going on that quest. Like I said, we were...
Wait, you're not wearing it now.
No, here. We'll do it.
What did you do?
Don't sweat it. It'll be all right. There we go.
So confused.
There we go. Okay, so now I'm wearing it.
Okay, so no longer a menu simulator. We're actually going to fight stuff.
Yep. So there's me in my dumb mustache, walking around. So, like I said before, the beginning of the game starts with snow. The quest that we're going to do now is sort of the culmination of that pursuit. You have to break off the pursuit of snow and go do some other things for a while. But this is now sort of how we are getting back into Snow's palace to, confront him.
Pretty generic loading screen.
Yeah.
The first one at least gave you story context on the loading screens.
This one you do too. I mean, not on that one, but like when you're transitioning between areas, you get some of that. You
clean up pretty nice.
Yeah, those adornments are just so dumb. I don't get it.
This guy should use that costume minigame.
Another thing,
there can't be anyone back.
There's not a lot of, there aren't like a ton of pre-rendered, like really pretty pre-rendered cutscenes in this. Not that that's necessarily, their in-game stuff looks pretty good, so I'm not necessarily complaining about that. But if you're really into Final Fantasy sort of pre-rendered thing, there's pretty much a thing at the beginning and a thing at the end, and that's about it.
So between 1, 2, and 3, they kept reinventing what Final Fantasy XIII was. How does this one kind of stack up to those other 2?
This is probably the biggest deviation, even from those. Like 13.2 at least kept the same combat system as 13, even though it sort of changed the structure to sort of jumping around in time and all that.
Right.
It was much less linear. This one is even more freeform in terms of, the direction you're given and the order you do things in. But the big difference here is that, like, the combat is different, which it's still fun, but like the combat, if you take the ridiculous story out of Final Fantasy XIII 2, it is one of my favorite RPGs of this generation. Like mechanically as an RPG, the combat is cool. It has this monster collection system. It has all of this great like post-game content that you can chase, like a series of bosses and stuff. Anyway, really cool. This one changes a lot of the things that I feel like worked really well in that game just for the sake of like being different. And don't even get me going on the story of this game because it is awful.
Why?
Oh, I mean,
I want to get you going. Why is it awful?
Okay, so I'd said in my review, what it really feels like to me is like a spin-off of the story that you would normally only get if you read like some of those like comics or, you know, like online only webisodes or something like that. It's just basically a parade of excuses to try and cram old characters into the story for reasons that just barely make sense.
That's disappointing.
And
I mean, this is the first time they've done like a full trilogy of Final Fantasy, right?
yeah. So yeah, it's still it just doesn't work. And especially when you get to the ending where, though on one hand it does wrap up the story. Oh, by the way, what we're watching now is like a play about the Savior, which is what Lightning is.
Okay, I like this. The medals look very nice.
Yeah, so what we've done here is we've already completed a quest to like rig this stage up with fireworks so we can get into
Blow them all up.
Yeah.
To save the people
So,
of this world,
anyhow.
I would give everything I am.
So the ending of this... Oh, it's not...
God.
It looks so dumb.
Let your blessings rain down.
So the
upon
ending of the
us.
game, though it wraps things up, just gets so stupid. And like... Parts of it are confusing and parts of it are just like sappy and dumb, and it is not satisfying.
In the name
What
of
about the
radiant
costume
God,
switching
I bear
gameplay?
aloft this light
So
and
Does
burn
that pan
the
out?
I mean,
darkness.
it basically feels like the way the paradigm system did in the last two games, where, you know, you're really sort of swapping between three different sets of attacks that you can do, though it is more active. So you're not just sort of governing the flow of combat like you were with the paradigm system. You are actively, you press a button and then lightning goes and does that thing. It's a lot more participatory. But do you want to sit through this whole thing, or should you want to skip ahead and get to some fighting?
You know, you're really selling me on the mustache. I've had a smile on my face every time they show her face. So, yeah. Go ahead and skip it.
Okay, we'll skip ahead and get to the combat. So really what happens is that explosion happens with all the fireworks, and that helps us break into Snow's palace, which is kind of funny. Hope sort of serves as the voice in your ear telling you what to do. He's back at the home base. He got real excited about blowing things up with fireworks, which was kind of funny.
All right. Well, that's the first cool thing I think I've heard him say.
Yeah.
Is wide open. It actually
Also, Hope is a kid again. Like, they replaced his adult character model from
It's all thanks to that
13.2
director helping us out.
with his...
If we'd set up the
I mean,
This sounds like a
explosion
mess.
as you'd planned it,
Like, everything you're saying just
it would be a
adds
real
up to
tragedy.
one big weird mess.
It's just super convoluted, and it feels like
somewhat. But
it all boils down to the same problem that Final Fantasy XIII, the first one, had, and that was just like not explaining the story clearly throughout the normal course of gameplay and expecting you to have to do a bunch of other dumb stuff to figure it out. So
Great, we're doing this again.
No, it's not going to take long.
You sure about that?
Yeah,
I'm already bored.
Okay, we're out.
Okay.
We're out, you baby.
Well, Jill,
All
let me
right.
ask you this question as you're beating this guy up.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want from Final Fantasy as a series? Obviously, 15 looks like a huge deviation even from, 13, which was a big deviation. Mm-hmm. Where do you want Square to go, let's say, with 16?
I mean, it's so hard to say where this can go and actually keep the series alive, because I mean, I'm not trying to cop out, by the way, but it's sort of like JRPGs as they've traditionally been over the years. Like, it's kind of hard to figure out how they fit into things right now. The traditional sort of turn-based formula just, I don't know if that's still a thing anymore. I mean,
It is.
You're
And-
playing.
and that's the answer I wanted to give you if you cop out of this like you are. I'm playing Bravely Default, which is turn-based, and it's fantastic. And it instantly reminded me of why I loved, Final Fantasy X and 7 and 3 and all those games.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much strategy there. This looks cool and all that, but I like having my party. I like having, the time to sit and think. What did they call it? Active time that they kind of went to as an option.
Yep.
That worked too, but I don't know. Bravely Default really shows that if it's done well, I think it still can be relevant. And maybe that's where they kind of went off the rails, is they weren't doing it well. There's a lot of JRPGs that came out that weren't doing it quite well, or the way that we'd want it to be.
This'll do.
I think, you know what? Okay, so to answer your question even more directly, what I want is something that's not going to happen. And that's I want Final Fantasy VI again. I want them to just
2D.
I want them to make a 16-bit RPG, and that's what I want Final Fantasy 16 to be, in the old style. But
one of the trailers they released for this was of sprite-based 2D Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Telling the story leading up to this game, and everybody that watched it was like, they should make that game.
Yeah, and that's what I want. But I don't know if that's something that Square, to sort of secure its position or to maintain the image of a cutting edge RPG developer or something. I don't know. I doubt that's something they're ever going to do.
They released a lot of that stuff on mobile.
Yeah. But again, their mobile strategy is totally messed up because they just overcharge for crap that you've played before 100 times.
Gets frustrating. As a big fan of this series, it's been really frustrating. And to think the best Final Fantasy of this generation, you expect these games to be some of the best out there. And I guess you would say 13.2 you really like.
I really did like 13.2, yep.
But it seems like 14, A Realm Reborn is, in terms of quality across the board, is probably the best Final Fantasy.
Yeah, if you're just looking for a traditional, a more traditional Final Fantasy thing, that's the way you've got to go.
Or I guess there was a Tactics, right? Was that just DS?
I think that was DS.
That might have been a long time ago. We're old, Joe.
Yeah, we are. So a couple other things I want to point out on this. This is not the playthrough that I used on my review. This is my personal retail playthrough. So I'm playing this on easy mode right now. There's a big difference between those two.
Why are you playing on easy if you already beat it on normal?
Well, that's the thing. Is the normal mode on this game is super hard. And I played a ton of it on normal for review. But there's really no incentive to do that. Unless you just want a game that's harder. If you play on normal, you're just going to get super frustrated by some really difficult bosses. And that's what I ran into for review anyway. So if you play on easy, you still get to experience all the content, and then you can just play on normal for a second playthrough, because the game has a New Game Plus feature. The game is essentially it's designed for you to be able to play it several times through and still sort of see different things.
So active time's back. I was kind of switching costumes with LB and RB.
Yep. So what I'm doing when I do that is, like we talked about earlier with the schema, it's like armor set. So I'm switching between not only how Lightning looks, but also what abilities she has available to her.
This area looks very cool, and the transition to combat's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the area that this is the area that people saw in the demo. And there's a lot of strategy. We haven't talked much about that, but I start out a battle by throwing out D-Shell and D-Protect, so lowering this guy's resistances. Throw a bunch of magic spells at him. I can use a special ability called Overclock to stagger them. And then you just, in that sense, it's a lot like the old ones. You want to stagger them, and then they're more vulnerable and use special attacks on them.
They have any summons or anything like that?
Nope.
Not even calling in other characters or anything, huh?
Nope.
From this game?
There are a few points when you might have an ally character by your side. But I don't want to... saying too much about that would be spoilery, but... characters from previous games show up, so there's that. But, yeah. And, one thing we haven't talked about that we really should touch on here is the idea of time passing. Because like I said, you have 13 days before the end of the world.
Right.
And that time actually passes in real time. I mean, you don't have physically 13 days. But, I think it's like, I don't know exactly. I think it's for like every 3 seconds of real world time, like a minute of in-game time passes. So you can see that clock up in the corner. So I have 7 days, and if I don't complete enough quests and stuff, the game will actually end. You'll get a game over before you're able to.
Wow. Do they give you any kind of indication where you're at on that arc?
Yeah, they do. Between days, there's a tree that you can sort of see how many extra days you've earned and stuff. But here's the thing that I want to point out about that. And if you're more curious, I put up a feature about a beginner's guide to this game that sort of tries to allay some of the fears that people might have about.
We'll link that in here
about it being timed. But basically, if you complete the main quests, there are 5 like mainline quests that are hard to miss. If you complete those 5 quests, you will get to the end of the game. You will get to the final day. So you don't have to worry about necessarily, oh God, am I going to get there? I have to do all these side quests and stuff like that. You'll get there if you do the main quests.
There's some cool bonus content kind of tied to that of maybe getting different costumes, stuff like that.
The new costumes and stuff, you buy new costumes in stores, and you get new costumes on New Game Plus. The reason to try and do as many quests as possible and stuff like that is to unlock. There's actually a way to unlock an extra day.
Oh.
So instead of 13 days, you get 14 days. And on that day.
And then you're charged a subscription fee.
That's Final Fantasy XIV. No. So that's the incentive to do. I mean,
Joe,
it's a ton of quests.
Why'd you leave that fight?
I want to get through some of this stuff. We've done a lot of fighting.
Are you trying to get to a boss or something?
Well, I just want to get a little bit. I want to get to the point where people saw the end of the demo.
How close are you?
But close.
There's all sorts of lasers floating around. You see that?
Yep, I do.
Not
There
alarmed
are
by that
lasers.
at all?
Well, it's some I don't know, super future palace. I don't know what to tell you.
There was a weird laser accident at some point, and they're just everywhere now.
Snow is really into lasers. He's just had them installed all over in his palace. So, anyhow, I mean, we're close enough to the end of the demo here. I think people will. There we go. So this is where the demo ends, and beyond this is sort of where the story continues. And yeah, I don't want to spoil too much of it for folks. But
And you ended up giving it a 7.
I did. I mean, despite all of the things that are problematic, it's still a decent game, and I still had fun with it. I mean, like you can see, I reviewed it and gave it a 7, and I am replaying it again right now. I enjoyed it enough to go through it. It's not my favorite it's not even the best Final Fantasy XIII. It is the worst. But
well, if you did anything here, Joe, you sold me on 13.2 to check out that combat system at least. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up our episode of Test Chamber. Thanks again for watching, and stick around on GameInformer.com. Keep checking back. We'll have more episodes throughout the year and weeks. Thanks.